Hola.
Bueno, señores.
Hola, mi amor. Mi pana. ¿Cómo estás?
Yup. Yeah.
He said, yup.
You fucking mixed breed.
Yo no entiendo, poppies.
No sabo. No sabo.
No sabo. That's literally a meme too in like the Hispanic culture. Is the no sabo kids.
I'm no sabo.
I'm about to get canceled.
Cancel me harder. Okay?
Cancel me, daddy.
If you're gonna
If you
do it,
cancel these nuts in
do
your
it
mouth.
all the way.
Booyah.
I don't know why I worry about having like a good enough intro because we just fucking kill it every time.
Now we're just waiting for Matt.
Yeah.
Who we canceling today?
All Hispanics.
Oh no.
He said, oh no.
He's like, leave me out of this.
That's like the episode of Smiling Friends when they're like the frowning friends, like their arch enemies, are like, we're gonna take over the world and eliminate all the Puerto Ricans, and everyone's like, oh, that was oddly specific.
I'm here. I was getting on Apple headphones. I didn't want like feedback. There's so many people on this that I was like, oh, if I have my audio just playing loud, I felt there would be feedback. So I was being respectful.
That's the spirit of Marxism.
Yeah.
How's it going, everyone?
Good.
What is today? Thursday? Happy Thursday. Yeah, that's it. That's what today is.
It really feels like a Friday today.
Oh,
be honest.
Yeah.
Friday.
I think we all wish it was a Friday. Yeah, it's Digi's birthday tomorrow, so we're doing her birthday thing tomorrow. So I'm definitely looking forward to Friday over this Thursday. Not
Happy birthday, Comrade Digi.
Yeah, there you go.
Happy birthday, Disney. That's our first birthday on the Kollectiv pod. Wow. There we go. This is the energy the comrades need. So, welcome to the Kollectiv Podcast, episode 6. And I swear to God, guys, if you fuck it up, I'm ending the live right now. I'm Ivan.
I'm your dad.
Amazing. All right, that wraps us up today, guys. Thanks so much for watching.
I'm Cruz.
At Matt, don't reply to the comments on the live. I will not, except for Kevin. Hi, Kevin. I'm just gonna say hi, Kevin. That's it. Never again. That was the only one.
R.I.P. Oh God, it's certainly going to be an interesting episode, isn't it? Well, anyway, I think we got. You know what? We're just going to keep moving. Let's keep chugging along, guys. But thanks for coming, Matt. We appreciate you coming up onto our live, joining the pod. So,
I'm Larry.
He's such a piece of shit. I could hear the excitement in your. You made like a humming sound right before. I swear to God, it was the spirit was telling me that you're just waiting. You're about to jump off your fucking skin.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I actually requested to not be on with Larry. I was like, I won't do it with Larry, and now Larry is here, so I don't know what to do. This is awkward. So awkward.
Oh well.
You gotta give the comrade kiss.
Here we go.
That fraternal smooch.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm the only one on video too. I like set up a webcam. I had totally misunderstood all the instructions of this. I set up a webcam and all this stuff, and I was like, oh, it's on your phone and it's TikTok. Now I'm the only one on video, but that's cool. I like avatars. They're cool.
Well, you know what? When it goes on YouTube, as we're formatted this way, still, you're not even going to show up on camera. So this is just a particular treat for those catching the live.
This is just for the TikTok live audience out there, which I cannot respond to in the comments, and I have to ignore.
Here, in solidarity.
Yeah, solidarity. Everyone watching live.
I will appear on camera with you.
Yeah, there we go. Look at that. Wow.
Good looking over there.
The view count just went up to like 100. That's crazy. Wow, that's nuts.
We got a goddamn smoke show in here.
I'm retiring. Who am I kidding? No one can retire in capitalism.
Eventually, Matt, the goal is for everyone to have a webcam, and we'll be showing our faces eventually.
Nice. Look forward to
yeah,
that.
we're just all currently upgrading our software and all that fun stuff, but yeah, eventually we'll be all showing our pretty faces.
I think we're pretty much just
at least
waiting
we
for
get
me.
a treat by seeing your guys's.
Yeah, I think it's just your computer we're waiting on, Ivan.
Yeah, and it's coming tomorrow, so we'll set it up tomorrow, and we'll do a test run.
Waiting for the computers and then also all the VPNs to block the CIA from taking your accounts down and all that. So
well, they found us before. Don't worry.
They make an appearance every episode. Trust me.
They're literally down the street from me, so there's no reason. There's no hiding.
I know. I'm already here, guys. Too late.
Feds are here. Yep.
But we might as well work for the feds, just like Oppenheimer did. And you need to stop. And I never really understood about him. There's all this re-talking about him now because the movie came out. But I just don't understand because this is a guy, from my perspective, right? They approached him and they were like, "Hey, you're pretty smart. Can you make a Japanese melter 3000?" And he's like, "Yeah, I can do that." And then he did it. And then he got really big upset about it. Bro, what did you think was going to happen? That's my brain. I cannot connect those two things together.
I think it's such bullshit though, where he's like, I just wanted to build it to show that we shouldn't build it. And then I didn't think they were going to use it. I think that's such a revisionist thing in his head, but it's just that's the narrative they're going to go through. Because it's you had to know they were going to use that shit. Come on, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, no, he definitely just, I don't know. There's just no way a man of that intelligence would just be like, no, they're not going to use it. Bro, that's the most lib thing you could do. Not think they're going to use the man melter 4000. I don't understand. I really don't.
Did everyone see it, or did only some people?
I haven't seen the movie yet. I've been kind of reading about him a little bit just to try to understand, to Ivan's point, why exactly did he build this? And from what I was finding is it seems as though he was not only propositioned to build it because he was smart, but it was mainly because the Germans had discovered nuclear fission and people like Einstein were messaging the government hey, a bomb could be made out of that. So the government immediately was like, we got to start making a bomb before the Germans do. The atomic bomb wasn't made for Japan. It was made for Germany in the event they were losing the war. And Oppenheimer was very excited to work on it, but it seems as though he also intentionally slowed the process down with the hopes that they weren't going to be able to use it because the war would be over.
Yeah.
Is what it seems like it was. And then the war was not over, and they used it, and he was like, God, fuck.
I mean, I think a lot of it was probably that, during World War II, the Soviets and the United States, there was, so much propaganda about how we were the best buddies forever until the end of time. And then as soon as FDR died and Truman took over, the whole vibe switched. Yeah. And at that point, I imagine that Oppenheimer thought that it was going to get used against Germany and, they were going to be communicating and collaborating with the Soviet Union. But by the time it was going to get used, FDR was already gone and they were already far enough into the project and Germany had, fallen. And, there wasn't anything he could do about it at that point. So, to save face, I would assume that he would revise his, his reasoning and be like, I didn't think we were going to actually use it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the interesting thing about the movie going into it, I didn't know anything about the history of it, and I didn't know it was going to go into communist stuff at all. And so it was interesting when they're like, "Oh yeah, we're part of the Communist Party of America," and I was like, "Whoa, what is this part about?" And then it doesn't really have any takes on it, really. He dabbles with them in the beginning, and the government's like, "We don't trust you because you had ties to these, communists." And then they do make this point of saying it's well, they weren't Russian communists; they were American communists, and it was a totally separate thing. So it doesn't really have was interesting. Like, I was like, whoa, this is kind of crazy. I didn't even know they were going to delve in it, because so many historical movies like omit, like take out these facts, like the new Napoleon movie. I doubt they're going to go into like the genocide that he caused, but like, I think they're just, they omit parts about that stuff. And so like, when I watched it, I was like, oh, they're actually going to tackle this a little bit. And like, it was kind of interesting there was no like political comment about communism, but it was a part of the narrative. And the only thing that I thought about it, I was like, well, at least like for mainstream audiences, like it will kind of maybe on a hopeful level, like maybe like normalize that these people aren't monsters, like they're not like what the government tells you, because the movie does present in the fact that it's like most of the communists in the movie are not terrible people that have these evil agendas. They're actually like want progressive things within inside the country. And like, that's kind of like, I was like, wow, they actually didn't present it in like the most negative light, but they did do a job of like kind of separating and saying like, it's like these people aren't with the Russian communists, like, so they still kind of separated them, but they did kind of like, I was like, for a mainstream movie to kind of like even mention that word is taboo. So I was kind of like surprised about that, even though I know it's historical. I just thought they would admit all that shit and be like, it's about this big bomb on IMAX,
See, but I have to disagree with their analysis, right? Because we are the red fascist tankies. So.
Oh, for sure. But like, it was like a liberal take, but like, I'm still saying at least they're normalizing the word that they're not monsters. Yeah,
for sure,
100%.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, multiple times in the movie, they like just give out little pieces of information. They don't really like say that anybody is really a bad guy per se. If anything, they kind of like show that the United States is kind of like a bad guy, because they have like, one of the directors has talked about how he would have like murdered this guy. And then there's a scene where it's kind of like left up to your mistress slash ex-girlfriend slash current girlfriend, either, committed suicide or was murdered. And then they also talk about like multiple times where they're like, oh, 50% of the faculty here are communists. Like these people just want to unionize the workplace or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, and that part was cool. Those parts, it was cool. But like, again, I don't think it's like that is the movie's agenda. And
Yeah.
I was like, like interested. I was like, I wonder what Nolan does think about this, like, or if this was just included to be historically accurate, because it doesn't present it in a negative light, but it doesn't really say anything about it, right?
I feel like with him, it's such a big part of his life that it's unavoidable to make anything about Oppenheimer without discussing it. Because like he had ties going back as far as like the 30s, like early 30s, maybe even late 20s. And like I had a quote pulled up when he testified. So during like the second Red Scare, he was before Congress and testified, I was associated with the communist movement. Like just straight up, like it's unavoidable. And then he lost his security clearance and everything during that period. And he never like stopped viewing that, but because the Cold War had started, it became more of an issue as opposed to just, oh, there's communists among us.
Right, so it's like a safety thing. He had to downplay it during that time, otherwise he would be in danger.
Yeah. I'm gonna turn this right on.
However, does Einstein hang dong? Because I heard he did.
That's the big question.
I mean, that's like, I'm not going to spoil it on this thing, but like that's the twist at the end is about Einstein and their relationship. And the dong, yes, it's about the dong as well. But yeah, it's interesting. The whole thing's kind of about like when you break down Oppenheimer, it doesn't really say about anything like politically, but it's just kind of like men's egos and just like kind of like trying to be smarter than people and better than people, and then just like that causing the thing that will ultimately probably be our world's demise is just these fucking egos and toxic men egos. And like like Robert Downey Jr.'s character and Oppenheimer's character, that's their whole dynamic. And like in a way, again, I'm trying not to do spoilers, that's kind of Einstein and Oppenheimer's dynamic as well. And it's like it's an interesting portrayal. Ultimately, like, I didn't love the movie. I thought it was good, not great. And like the thing that was interesting me is like I was like, this movie did not need to be this long. I feel like it definitely could have been shorter, but it's still worth seeing, definitely. Sorry for going on a tangent about this movie. I don't know if we're supposed to talk about this.
No, you're good. You're good.
I think it's also important to remember, like, with these types of people, like, this is the field that Oppenheimer, Einstein, like, this is the kind of stuff they wanted to study to begin with, but they weren't exactly getting funded outside of military purposes. So that's another big justification for them to actually go through, whether or not they politically agree with the use of an atomic bomb, the fact that they're getting funded to do the research they want to do, definitely, and alongside their egos to be the ones to discover it, would play a huge role in whether or not they take on a project like this, whether they morally agree with it or not.
Yeah. The weird thing with me is I did the whole, I didn't see them on the same day, but I definitely did the Barbie and Oppenheimer thing where I saw both movies. And again, this live is not scabs. We're not promoting movies. We're just discussing them just on our own free will. We're not scabbing for
Speak for yourself.
The movie. I saw both movies, and I definitely thought I was going to like Oppenheimer, and I thought Barbie was way better. I thought Barbie said a lot more, and it was a lot deeper movie, because Barbie talks about, like, the patriarchy, it talks about women's role in society, how hard it is. Barbie talks about, like, existentialism, and Barbie talks about capitalism and being fascist and a bunch of shit, and Oppenheimer's just like, men kind of have egos and they're bad. And I'm like, wow, Barbie's the deeper movie. That's fucking insane. I thought for sure, like, I would like Oppenheimer more, but I ended up liking Barbie a lot more. So, Team Barbie, that's all I'm saying. Throwing it out there for the
kind of the consensus I've heard is most people seem to like Barbie, unless they're, like, toxic men.
Yeah, but I for sure was like, they're not going to bring up capitalism and call Barbie a fascist in this movie, and they did. So I was pleasantly surprised about that.
I liked Oppenheimer a little bit more.
Totally fair.
Toxic masculinity confirmed.
Oh,
Cancel.
brother, this guy stinks!
Cancel.
Well, honestly, if I haven't seen either. I
haven't seen either.
But I already think I like Barbie more. My sister was telling me about how they called Barbie a fascist, and it made me want to watch it more because, like, and then she was also telling me about the patriarchy and capitalism in there, and I'm so glad that, like, her reaction wasn't, it was too political. Because, there's people out there who are saying it's too political. They're not watching this because it's too political, which is bullshit. Because politics is your life, buddy. I'm sorry. It's your life. It's involved in all.
It's unavoidable unless you want to be some kind of Anne Prim or some bullshit like that.
You want to be a fucking caveman in a cave, fucking breaking rocks again.
Is it's such a huge, and the shit they got away with is just insane. I was like, this is insane that they were able to sneak this kind of through and over the heads of the people that made it, because it's kind of wild watching that movie. It's like a little toy IP which has like a huge following, and it's such a strange movie. And I was like, wow, the fact that this is like mainstream and like working. And again, it's still, it's not like super based. It's not, there's still some stuff in there that's more liberal than, Comrade, but like, it's still, it says a lot. And I was just like, wow, like this movie went further than I ever thought it was going to. And so I was like pleasantly surprised about that. And there's even stuff that's like, you break down, it's like when the men are in charge, I don't want to spoil it, but like basically like Ken's, find out in the real world about the patriarchy and then bring it back to Barbie Land is like, that's not the whole plot, but that's a big part of it. And then as soon as Ken's basically start bringing the toxic masculinity to Barbie Land, they go to war with each other, which is like insane in a kid's movie about toys. Like
that's a crazy spoiler.
Yeah, it's really not. I don't think it is. It's in the trailers. I mean, if you watch
it, I guess I wouldn't know because I don't really watch trailers in general.
But
I just looked up the reviews.
It's pretty crazy.
Well, the thing is, Matt, and like I know you know this, but like we've brought this up a few times in the podcast. Like anti-capitalist media sells, and it's very popular because it gives the pros something to do. If you watch Barbie and that's the extent of your praxis, and for a lot of people it will be, at least for the time being, then the corporations make their money, the artists get their message out, but capitalism still stays in power. It's the same thing that we're doing with Kollectiv. That it gets popular and people want to hear what we have to say, and we'll keep doing it. Left on the internet because again, it gives satisfies the government's need for have people doing stuff besides revolution.
Yeah,
Right.
and
No, that's a great point.
unlike the rest of you revisionist champagne socialists, I have seen neither movie. I have been spending the last 2 weeks watching nothing but replays of "Try That in a Small Town," brother.
Oh my god.
So I
they'll
Go
talk
ahead.
about I'm sorry, real fast. I'm so sorry.
No, you're good.
They'll talk about a sundown town, and they'll happily gloat about it and act ignorant like it's not fucking super racist. But then they'll be super mad at the Barbie movie for being too political. It's like
Yeah, all they mean by political is politics I don't like. That's
Right.
Exactly.
They don't care
Woke
about it being
means
political.
like anti-black. It means anti people of color. It means anti anything progressive. If you're anti-woke, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And I don't consider I guess I consider that like a liberal term in a way a little bit, but like
Yeah.
I guess that's like a different topic. Depends on what lens you look at it through, though. If you look at it through like a liberal lens, or if you look at it through like a Pan-African lens, because it did originate in the African American community, and it wasn't always something that was associated with libs. It was more associated with the liberation of black people, and and things like that. There's much more history to it, and just a little off topic, but it's kind of similar to the word fascist. Like I know, like when I say fascist, I actually mean that I think that person's a fascist. But like some people just throw a word around the word fascist, right? They'll call communist fascist or something, or they'll just say communist and fascist is the same thing. The is irreversible.
Yeah, I think
authoritarian.
Say that again, Cruz. Sorry, I was talking over you.
I said people just use the word fascist as a placeholder for the word authoritarian. That's all. Like they just think authority means fascist.
Right, which is a liberal idealist fallacy, because every liberal government is authoritarian. If you think about it, they don't give any houseless anywhere to live. They charge people. They put people in debt for medical assistance, and put people in debt for school assistance. They go to war. They invade countries. They help commit coup d'états. If that's not the definition of authoritarian, I don't know what the fuck it is.
I've seen a major
liberal idealist fallacy.
Yeah, well, I think we could definitely do a whole entire episode on just the concept of wokeism. And you're right, it is originally a Pan-African concept, but just like all things neoliberalism gets their hands on, they taint it and they will warp it into their own. Because now, what you and I would consider just basic human decency, like using pronouns that people want, or recognizing the difference between races and recognizing the reality that there are different classes, neoliberalism will say, no, none of that. LGBTQ liberation is putting gay fighter pilots to bomb brown kids all around the world. Or they'll do this commercial where you have the Hispanic woman, training really hard for the military, and her mom is in the background going, "You got this, mija," and and then she can run around and order children in Iraq to dig their own grave. Like that is liberal wokeism, and I think the reason why I think at least I do, I don't think the politics and the way we treat people, this is going to sound like a contradiction, isn't really anything special. Like, just treat people as human beings. You know what I mean? Like, we don't have to. The fact that you guys are hijacking, LGBTQ struggle or black struggle or Hispanic struggle for the empire is disgusting.
I full-heartedly agree. And
and they do this all the time. They co-opt, different rallies and strikes. Like Democrats, the recent I went to, this was like a couple months back, was an anti-abortion. Sorry, it was pro-abortion march, and it was like when you got there, it was really interesting because all these different groups were like being like, "Fuck the Democrats, fuck the establishment," and all this shit. And by the time we got to the end of the actual march, it was co-opted by the Democrats. They blasted music, and the VP came out. This is in Los Angeles. It came out and was like talking like they actually care about women's rights. And I was like, holy shit! Like the beginning of this march was just like bashing, Democrats, and by the end they co-opted it to be like, it's like, oh, it's party town, like. We care about women even though we won't protect your rights. They do this constantly on every level, and especially with the military, what you're talking about. I just did a video, and I was watching all these like army recruitment stuff, especially on YouTube. They're trying, because their numbers are so down, because kids are aware, like the U.S. Army is about imperialism, and they're not heroes, and like the youth are aware of this stuff, and so their numbers are way down. So they're trying to like get all these different groups. So there's all these ads now, like that are looking at like, LGBTQ and like all these different, groups that they never used to go for, because it's like they have to, but it's not because they care about you. It's just like they want to use you in their, war machine, which is insanity,
Yeah.
I paused a whole lot.
No, you're good. I mean, it's just rainbow capitalism,
Rainbow capitalism, exactly, yeah.
Going at it. It's super performative, appealing to the masses, but never really showing up for it when it comes down to it. Still, being basically, getting in the way of liberation of all these people, women, the LGBT community, people of color, etc. They'll continue advocating for these policies. The conservatives will come in, be the bad guys, put in place all these policies and these laws, and the Democrats will be like, "We'll take it away. We'll reverse it." They'll get into power, and then they won't do that. They'll probably, if anything, they'll enforce it even more.
It'll be interesting this next election cycle, because at least last time they had, Trump and the Republicans in power, and they could easily just be like, "Hey, look at all the shit they're doing, we'll do better." But now all this shit's been happening under them, and they're still like, you gotta vote for me, you gotta donate to my campaign so that we can stop what the Republicans are about to do. Motherfucker, you didn't do anything.
Right. It's hard to be like, I'm going to be the most progressive president and not drill oil when you drilled more oil than Trump. It's hard to be like, I actually care about minorities when you put more money into cops. It's going to be like a definite hard sell, but they do it every time, and sadly liberals fall for it every time. So I mean,
we really don't even have to look like much below the surface, unfortunately. Like, so everyone saw the video, I think, of Mitch McConnell having like a TIA. It was just like a mini stroke, basically. And I don't think that's actually what happened, but that's just, what the talk around the shop is. But yeah, like the speech, and he stopped talking and get escorted away. So Joe Biden called him on the phone to see how he was doing, and that became like a whole news piece about, look at President Biden, he's reaching out across the aisle to see, how his adversary is doing. He's such a, like a big man, bigger than our system. Trump would never do this. And I made a video today where he's not doing that because he's taking the high road. He's doing that because they're friends.
Right.
Like, Joe Biden is a real piece of shit in Minecraft. Like, this is the same guy.
No, in real life.
In real life. This is the guy
in real life. You don't need Minecraft for that.
No, in Minecraft, he would TNT your house.
Oh, okay, yeah.
He's a real piece of shit. And in real life and in Minecraft. But this is a guy who used to say, like, he would go have lunch with segregationists. And he's like, at the end of the day, we were still hanging out. And it's like, yeah, Joe, because you're a racist. Like, you're not a good person. Joe Biden the Democrats have not materially improved the working person's conditions the entire time they've been in power, during this entire presidency. And it's just crazy to see the liberal and Republican, it's all liberal, but the liberal and Republican solidarity occurring When it's like, go Joe Biden, yeah, checking up on our old pal Mitch McConnell. Really? Because last week you guys were talking about how terrible Mitch McConnell was as a person, but go off, I guess.
They have
That's
to, they
like
have to
taking
stop
care of him.
Joe from running out there and like literally propping him up because his good old friend is having a tough moment, and I mean I just picture him cradling McConnell in his arms, crying over him like Steven did in Django after
Look
they
at what
shot
they did to
Calvin.
my boy.
Yeah,
Well, Joe
not
Budden can
you.
relate
You
to
were
that.
you were the best. These guys.
Fuck that turkey neck, honestly.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
there was another clip right after the Mitch McConnell one that I think was today, which was Feinstein voting on something, and again, she's really old as well, and she doesn't know where she is, and they ask her it's just a yes or no, and she goes into this thing, and someone just has to come up to her ear and be like, "You're just supposed to say yes," and she's like, "Oh, yes." And the only thing with both those clips that I think is interesting is I think it becomes extremely transparent to how big of puppets everyone in Washington is, where it's like Democrat or Republican, it's like they're just like they don't even know where they are sometimes, and just someone just be like, just say the thing how you don't like drag queens and their groomers, if that's the right wing talking point or whatever,
Yeah.
It's just like they're such puppets for their parties that it's just like it's so transparent. Like these people, like Biden is just like sometimes you just watch him wander off the stage, and whenever I post that stuff, it's just like, this is Russian, deep fake. And I was like, it's literally a clip. You could just look it up. This happened, People are in such denial about it. It's crazy.
Yeah, I
These
remember
guys
when
are they're proto-boomers. They're older than boomers, believe it or not. They're they're proto-boomers, proto-fascist boomers. Sorry, Ivan, I keep
The
interrupting.
silent generation, if only.
No, you're good. I was just gonna say, I've told you guys before, but I'll tell Matt. Like when I was doing my training to become a nurse, and they would send us into different nursing homes, like it really occurred to me, like, holy shit, I'm working with people who are younger than the president, and they don't know what the fuck is going on. Like these are severely disabled people, and these just old folks. I'm not even saying anything bad about them, but that was the reality. These are people who
Right,
need
yeah.
full care, and I'm like, the people running the country are older than these people. Like that's insanity.
I get this in my class a lot. It's kind of like a liberal talking point where it's like they call you ageist. And it's like, it's not ageist when you're literally saying this person runs our country and doesn't know where he is. That's a problem. He has the new codes, I don't think that's ageist. That's just the reality of the situation, And it's like Dem Talk has especially started using that as something to be like, you're ageist. You just don't like old people. It's like, no, there's amazing old people, but when you don't know where you are, we cannot just deny that, we can't just be like, yeah, this is not a problem. Mitch McConnell just was nervous, no, he literally was frozen and didn't know what was going on at the point. And these are the people that are running our country, making huge decisions that impact all of us on every level, and that's a problem. And we got to call that out. And when you do call that out now, you get called ageist, which is okay, yeah, there are some people that are ageist, but that's not what we're talking about right here.
No, for sure. I only hope that when I start forgetting where the fuck I am, that I have family or people who are close to me who would take care of me and not put me in these crazy positions,
Right.
Geez, I can't imagine.
Yeah, please don't make me the president.
Right. Be like
president,
Stalin and be like, please let me resign. And they're like, no, come.
No.
No, comrade, you must lead the revolution.
It would be one thing if Biden was in charge and he kept trying to resign and they just physically Democrats physically would not let him resign. That would be one thing, but that's not what's
probably true. It's probably true too. He's probably like, where am I? They're like, you're the president, sir. You have to say this line about why we need to drill oil in Alaska.
Maybe it is because they won't allow debates or another Democrat to run against him.
Yeah. He had his track record. He was horrible on every single thing throughout history. Like you were saying earlier, he was friends with the head of the Ku Klux Klan and talked high about them. So it's he's not someone that's radically progressive in his views. So it's like he's definitely shifted to be what the Democratic Party wants to present. And I think that's just them being like, look, you can't be racist anymore. And he's like, okay, I guess I'll say with the lines, whatever.
He can't say the gamer word on stage.
Right, exactly.
I'm surprised him and his little, his little delusions hasn't even slipped up and said something crazy. Like,
I mean, he's flipped up so many times. One time he said, "You're not black unless you vote for Joe Biden, Jack."
I remember
that to someone that was black, which was crazy. So he's definitely
that is crazy.
Slipped
Yeah,
up.
poor kids are just as smart as white kids.
Yes,
that was my favorite. That's my favorite one. My favorite Bidenism.
Yeah,
you guys are just being ableist by making fun of him.
Yeah.
Correct.
Like, that's the question every time. It's like you're either ableist or ageist.
Yes.
Like, you can't criticize Joe Biden at all, otherwise you're like evil.
Speaking of ableist, Pat sucks. I
just bro, those guys stink.
Yeah, I don't. Have you had many run-ins with this crowd, Matt?
No, no, I haven't actually. The craziest thing, I'm not going to throw the account under the bus, is I did see, it was a couple months ago. I'll tell you in the chat. I did see a communist account that I am mutuals with, like being like, I'm a patriotic communist, and I was like, what the fuck is that? And what's that?
I said RIP, R.I.P.
Yeah, and then I was like, what the fuck is that? Because I didn't even know this was a thing. But yeah, anytime I don't really like that. Yeah, I hadn't seen that take, and they got shredded. Like, they got destroyed and stitched a bunch, and I was like, wow, this is a bad take. But no, I haven't actually engaged with that a lot. So that was really interesting for me to be like, what the fuck is this?
It exists only on Twitter and in Fed spaces, really.
And TikTok now. I know one person.
And, yeah, it's
like online ideology.
It's very much an online ideology.
Well, they said themselves that they're
no, you go. No.
You want the talking candle?
I'm muting my mic.
But what I was saying was, it's like they admitted it themselves on Twitter that they're gonna try to radicalize the masses via memes and basically ratioing people on Twitter. Because I've come up with a theory is that there's like this they're inside of a Discord where they like everybody in that is like super dedicated. They'll send a post because like I've seen people get ratioed in like a minute, which is impossible. Like I know they're sending their posts like a Discord and stuff, and they're doing that on purpose so they could like look like they're right, and they're always having like crazy reactionary arguments, and they be saying some really controversial things on Twitter. It's definitely an online ideology. Definition of a LARP for sure. They're basically like Republicans with that like communist aesthetics. They love to twist and skew Mao and what he has to say on patriotism. He specifically says patriotism for like the working class and the proletariat. They specifically think that only working classes. And also a point that we were talking about earlier is they think that Starbucks baristas aren't working class, and like a bunch of other working class people. They believe that they aren't working class and that they aren't worthy of having the title of working class. It's absolutely crazy. In Minecraft, those motherfuckers would get the brick wall.
There's a lot of Minecraft talk in this TikTok.
There's a lot of Minecraft.
Yeah, that's how we try to get around the feds.
Yeah, specifically. I think we've seen it. It's pertinent to current last few weeks trend is that you've seen a bunch of bad faith actors and certain other distorters of Marx trying to say that SAG, this entire thing, that these people are not worthy of solidarity because they are not working class. So who wants to tackle that one?
I mean, I can go into that for sure. Yeah,
Go
I
off.
mean, like that's what you see the most, which is like these, and they're mostly burner accounts, which is weird because a lot of times I get like really sus about a lot of these accounts. You always click into them and you look at like what they posted before their profile. I'm not saying all of them; they're probably just like terrible right wing people who make burner accounts, but a lot of them do seem like they're just like paid bots. Where I'm just like, what? Who would have this take? Like, it's such a bad take. But it's weird when they try to be like, oh no, the Writers Guild or the Actors Guild, like these people are rich. And it's like, yeah, like the people at the top, but you understand the majority of them are not rich and are not making money and are struggling to even pay their rent or get groceries on any sort of level. And it's kind of wild because it's like it started, with the Writers Guild, and now it's like it was always going to happen because basically streaming changed everything, right? So we used to have like television. So you if you were on the show, whether or not you were a writer or an editor or a grip or whatever, and the show aired multiple times, you would get residuals. But then streaming came along, and it's very hard to like quantify like how many times a show is streamed. And so there will be people, and this is insane, which is what's happening, that are on every single episode of a TV show that are a major character, like Orange is the New Black. One of the main cast was like, I get paid 13 cents a month for residuals. And this is a speaking part. So you can imagine, and every episode, main character level. And so you can imagine what extras then make. You can imagine then what the grips are making. You can imagine whatever. And the difference, again, is when you go back to the, and it was bad even in the 1980s. In the 1980s, the CEOs made 30 times more than the average worker, which is fucked up when you think about it. You take the average worker's rate, you times it by 30. Where we're at today, they make 400 times more. So you take that, you take the average worker, you times what they make, all together, you times that by 400, and you get what a CEO makes, which is nuts. And so the fact that they're like, yeah, we don't really care about these writers, we don't really care about these actors, and we especially don't care about background, because now we have, what they have is AI, and AI has gotten to the point, and this is where people just don't get this, is ChatGPT can write a script. And so now Netflix and Universal and all these people are looking at ChatGPT, be like, why are we paying these writers when we could just like have this AI put together a script? And then why are we paying background actors? Because this is what they do, and this sounds nuts, but this is the reality which we're at. We're now getting so good with Midjourney and all these AI things, they can scan people, and what they want to do is they want to pay an extra. So they used to, every time there's a person in the background, they're an extra, right? And you get paid like maybe $100, $200 for a day. It's a lot. It's a lot of work for not. You're there maybe all day and you don't get paid a lot. They want to scan you one time. They own the likeness. They will just put you. Like when you have Brad Pitt, you have like, he's in a restaurant, you have all these people in the background. They're all just going to be CGI copies of people now, which is nuts. And so like they're just eliminating jobs for the bottom line, and they don't care about the workers. So what the Screen Actors Guild and the Writers Guild and all these people are doing is they're trying to get more revenue from streaming, which the corporations, of course, don't want, and they're trying to stop the ultimate overtake of AI. And it's gotten to the point where it's just like, it's nuts. You have people, so like when right-wing people, they see like Bryan Cranston, who's, in Breaking Bad, talking like, what's this rich fuck complaining about? Get back to work. He's standing up for every other actor in the Actors Guild. Bryan Cranston will ultimately be okay no matter what happens. But what he's doing is he's part of the union, which is defending every other actor within that union. That's the point, is solidarity, is they're standing up for every other person that's going to be shit on. So yes, Brad Pitt ultimately will be okay.
I do want to
that's
add
not the point.
Yeah. So like, something like Bryan Cranston is good to bring up, because even though he is wealthy, he's done quite well. Obviously, he was Walter White in Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad has seen a huge resurgence because of Netflix and something like what's that show? Better Call Saul.
Right.
But the thing is, because less and less people are watching cable, those residuals and royalties still affect Bryan Cranston. Now, for all that hard work that he did on that show, when people are watching it on Netflix, which Netflix does not share to the public how much money a show makes or whether or not a show does, we don't know what their metrics are. It's all internal. Bryan Cranston is not getting paid.
Right, which is insane. And like that, and I'm not trying to downplay Bryan Cranston. I was trying to more like explain like the right wing point of view is like they don't understand the connect. But yes, 100%. Bryan Cranston is getting screwed still because the CEOs ultimately still benefit. Bryan Cranston is paid what they should be paid for every time that show is streaming on a digital service, because one, they don't share the data of how many people stream that. Snoop Dogg notoriously said this recently. He's like, if it's streamed 1 million times, I should have $1 million, $1 per stream.
Yeah.
Why the fuck am I not a millionaire? The streaming numbers do not make sense. It's because these companies are making all the cash, the CEOs and the corporations. Exactly. So
well, it's not even a right wing, point of view. A lot of, I would say, so-called communists or leftists who are not one as politically educated as they think they are, and two, don't look at things materially. They look at things metaphorically or in fantasy. So, like, yes, is Bryan Cranston and Bob Odenkirk and all these people, are they wealthy and rich? Yes. Okay. Well, so is Engels. Like, you have to use the tools that you have. And socialism, communism is not a poverty cult. If you call yourself a socialist and a communist and you believe that by somehow having a little bit, not in this case a little bit more, but having more suddenly negates your praxis, then you have fundamentally misunderstood what we are trying to do. Because just by being wealthy or just by being poor doesn't automatically make you bourgeois. It doesn't automatically make you pro. That's the thing with these pratsocks, is they don't know what to be proletariat is. But a lot of these people who, so-called leftists, who are saying that like all these rich people in the union shouldn't be fighting for the small person, why wouldn't you want them to? These people have a bigger reach. These guys have a bigger platform. That Bryan Cranston going up there and saying what he's got to say for all union members is a lot more effective than, an actor or an actress. I'm not saying that downplays her praxis, but you have to look at things through optics, and you have to look at things through how many people can we get talking about this. The fact that we're talking about Bryan Cranston in this situation, he's done exactly what he was supposed to do.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And that's the point that I think is missed from like the horrible comments like in those videos, is like, why is Bryan Cranston? It's like the reason why they're putting him as the face, because that video will bring class consciousness. That video will go viral. No one will share some nameless person, sadly. But Bryan Cranston, it's been everywhere, and that is why it's a positive. Like, ultimately, they're going to use the biggest names because those people will be shown more. And the great thing I think about specifically this and the Writers Guild and the movies is everyone, for some reason, is aware of it because of movies. And besides the Amazon one, which I feel like got to that level, as I feel like it brings awareness just to unions in general. And I feel like that's a good thing, because more and more now people are looking at unions, because corporations were always, whenever you go to work at retail, they'd be like, oh, these unions, they just want to dip into your pocket and steal your money. We have your best interest in mind for you. And now it's like you're starting to see, like, on a broad scale, people are realizing like unions are not the enemies. And just recently, it was kind of amazing. I think it was maybe today or yesterday, it was the first New York City pizza place unionized, which was nuts, And now we have UPS is trying to unionize, which I think that's disgusting, because we known for so long that they like don't even have AC in those trucks, and like heat is disgusting. And like, again, their CEO and the company is making billions year after year, and they're not doing anything for workers. So of course they should unionize. And I think that like the thing that's really great about the Writers Guild and the movie one is it brings awareness to the fact that, again, it's normalizing these things for people like that don't really get what we're talking about. Like when they see these people, it doesn't matter. That's the interesting thing, is like, I've seen people that are like super far left or super far right love Breaking Bad. They love Bryan Cranston. So when they hear him say something, they're going to listen to it more than if it was someone that's political. Like, sadly, celebrities can, push ideas and, agendas. And I think the fact that like this union stuff is like going through with these big stars backing it, like, oh, there's, James Gunn's brother who's in Guardians of the Galaxy talking high about unions. I think that's an overall like net positive, like that's actually like changing minds that wouldn't necessarily view unions positively because they've been told not to by every job they've ever worked at.
For sure. And, for clarification, the UPS, they are unionized. They're unionized by the Teamsters. they've been in the headlines because they were fighting for a contract primarily to get their part-time workers their wages up from $16 an hour to closer to what full-time workers make, and to get things like ACs in the car. But not to take away from your point, I mean, if anything, it only reinforces it because the UPS was unionized. They were able to come to this, what's starting to look like more and more like a historical win for labor. But I can't personally speak on too much of that right now today. But those are just my general thoughts,
Mm-hmm. I also want to say, like, when it comes to like these contracts and what like SAG and the WGA are even asking for, there's an example of how easy it is to just go with what they say and it won't affect your business. And that's the production group A24. They're allowed to keep working with SAG and WGA because they accepted the terms of the contract. They're like, all right, didn't affect them all that much.
Like, and those are smaller studios. They're not like Warner Brothers. A24 is like, I wouldn't say they're the most independent, but like they're independent. And like, so for them to be like, yeah, whatever you ultimately come to, we're going to agree with so we can continue to shoot. That means that like, if they can do it, definitely Warner Brothers could do it. Definitely like Disney can do it. Definitely every other studio could just agree, but they won't, because like ultimately they rather drag it out and make these people like struggle to the point where it's like they feel like they can't do anything, where they're losing their houses. And that's their ultimate goal always, is just to like drag it out as long as they can and screw over the workers, which is insane.
Yeah, if independent production groups can do it, then big studios can do it.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that a lot of it's not just like it's like no surprise for me that Brian and them are supporting unions, because unions are actually like a big part of the film industry, at least in the indies. A lot of film studios are union, so a lot of these actors have been in unions, actor unions, and these film industry unions. It's prevalent in the industry, and but obviously there's a lot of film industry, like a part of the film industry, that isn't unionized, and there's some jobs like I found out that um, PAs, like production assistants, they don't qualify for unions. So if you're ever a PA, you can never. I mean, you might be able to get lucky in PA for union, but at least not in my area. But yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised that they fuck with the unions. I think Cruz would know more about that though, because he's been in the field much longer.
Typically, with like production group, you join like IAF.
The crazy thing that people don't get too is like, when they don't know how hard this is hitting people, is like, so like what they do on these Netflix shows is you have top billing, right? You have, paid, everyone else is paid below them, and they just arbitrarily set that. It's not like a contract thing, but if they're like, we're paying the head this, you get this, you get this, you get this, you get this. And to be, for example, in SAG, I think you have to make it's like 25,000 to get even to qualify for healthcare. So it's like, it's affecting a lot of people who aren't on the top billing, and you could be like 6 down and just not even qualify for healthcare, which is messed up. Like, it's like, so when people are like, oh, I don't really care about this cause, it's like, then you're not really solidarity, because like like these people's livelihoods, like they're not being able to get the pills and medications that they need and groceries. It's like you're looking at it wrong when you're not caring about this issue. And most of the comments, well, not most, but I'd say a lot of them are just pretty heinous when you go into any of these SAG or things. It's just like, get back to work, and they just want, I want to see my Marvel movies or whatever it is. It's pretty toxic.
Well, unfortunately, a lot of these, again, make-believe leftists, make-believe communists, like the Pat Socks, they don't look at things, like I said, materially. They don't think people like baristas are proletariat. They believe to be proletariat, you can't be an actor, a barista, or a food worker, or a doctor or a nurse. You have to be in heavy industry. You have to work in shipyards or oil refineries, nuclear power plants, steel mills, things like that, railroads, which is all well and good, but to we don't live in the 1880s anymore. labor has changed, society has changed in general. So there are people who are putting real labor to make, not only for them to make a a minimum wage just so they could fucking survive, but to make places like Starbucks or super rich. So, and again, it's just really ironic because then you have these people like Haas, or these other Padsocks who are not proletariat by their own definition because they're just streamers. So
Exactly. And
Go ahead, Blair.
we have to understand, especially in the Imperial Core, there's a lot of what you would call institutional labor that really isn't productive labor. And if we don't want to get to a deep dive into this space right now on Marxist theory of what's productive and unproductive labor, but clearly, a lot of people who are wage laborers are like people like me who just work within sort of the finance industry or things like that, who are just basically part of the institutional labor force that doesn't reproduce any sort of value. They're just maintenance of the system itself. But these bureaucratic type jobs will not go away under socialism, at least initially, because we will still have to have maintenance of bureaucracy and things like this. We're not just going to flip a switch overnight and throw, anarchists might want us to do something like that, but we're not that. So, yeah, it's a crazy nuanced conversation that people who are just fighting for online clout are not serious is my point in this.
There is
I think people are like really reductive, especially regarding like the actors and screenwriters, because like people, I feel like usually people either assume or some bourgeois monsters, right? But like the reality is like a lot of them are proletariat, and like their relation as actors and screenwriters automatically makes them workers, right? But like Ryan Reynolds, for example, owns a fucking like football team, like a soccer team in Wales, right? Like he's not a worker there. He's the owner. Like he owns Mint Mobile. There's other actors who own all sorts of different businesses. So like that's not to say that some actors aren't assholes and like are the boss, but their specific relationship to the means of production in regards to like the film industry makes them a worker in that aspect. You know what I mean? So like I don't know, I feel like they're like luxury proletariat. You know what I mean? Like you got like petite bourgeois, like they're like luxury proletariat to me. Like capitalism benefits at least the top amount of them, if you know what I mean.
I want to give an example of something that Matt had said, where the difference in scale from like a top billed actor to and how drastic it can change. For the first Avengers movie, Robert Downey Jr. was offered $50 million. Scarlett Johansson, Chris Evans, and Chris Hemsworth were offered $200,000. And Robert Downey Jr. actually had to stop production and fight, and he almost single-handedly ended the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Had he not done that and just accepted it, they would have gotten $200,000, which is, to me and you, that's a lot of money. But for a multi-billion-dollar company and a film that made over $1 billion, that's a lot that they're just not getting for their work, being the faces of that franchise. So even people fight for the people within their space to help bring them back up.
Exactly, and there's so many interesting things about this that like are kind of getting lost too. Is like this has nothing to do with the unions and stuff, but the Supreme Court also just ended this. I forget what I'd have to look it up what it was. They just ended it's called the Paramount degree. That's what it was. It was the Paramount degree. And what the Paramount degree meant is like, so studios basically couldn't control the vertical integration of stuff, meaning they couldn't, like, so they would make the movies and then they would own the theater and they would own the distribution and producing. And so so originally back in the for 70 years, they couldn't own all that because then they would create a monopoly. And so like basically no independent studios would be able to get movies into theaters. So the theaters are owned by separate things. The distribution is owned by a different company, and all these things are separate. Well, the Supreme Court now just backtracked that, and they're basically said that like, well, Netflix produces their own show, they distribute their own show, and they pay everything. So it's like, why are we holding the studios back? We're going to just disband this law that we've had for 70 years. And so what that means now, in a time that theaters are really struggling after the pandemic, and just in general, people now have 4K TVs, less and less people are going and streaming or going to theaters, is these companies are going to come over and just like top to bottom, be like, guess what? You want this independent movie in the theater? We want Star Wars showing in every theater that day. And we also want these 4 other Disney movies that no one's going to see. We don't care if you want to carry them or not. If you don't carry them, you're going to not get Star Wars. So they're going to have a complete monopoly on movie theaters now, which is very bad. A24 films in theater, which again is the worst. We're just going to have these IPs all over the place. Not like we already don't, but we're going to have less and less theaters because the Supreme Court removed this law, which was there in place for 72 years because of streaming. They're just like, well, Netflix getting away with murder. We should let the corporation and the studios get away with murder again. It's just the government will always back the 1% and the corporations every single time, and they do it every single time.
Exactly. That it's incredibly important, and talking about all those all those liftings of those restrictions, and we're going back in particularly in the entertainment industry, we're going back to the old studio days, only worse.
Yeah, it was wild, and like this is going to get a lot worse now that this just happened. Because it's crazy. Like a couple of years ago, Quentin Tarantino talked about this, and Quentin Tarantino is not some small indie director. Like, he's pretty big. When Hateful Eight was out, he was having trouble getting that movie played in the bigger chains like AMC, because at the time, Disney was forcing them to run Star Wars: The Force Awakens on every single screen. And so Tarantino couldn't get the Hateful Eight played in some theaters, which boggles my mind. So now imagine, like, on a lesser scale, a lesser known studio, a lesser known production company trying to get some horror movie or something that's like amazing, like Everything Everywhere at Once, or like played when they're like, sorry, we got the next Captain Marvel movie we got to show on 100 screens. Like it's really wild the times we're at. But like it's just also depressing that every single time our government would always side with the lobbyists and the corporations and the rich, every single time, which is disgusting.
That practice also does this, where not only do they require you to show it on every screen, they'll require you to show it for about 4 weeks, and the theater is only allowed to take the money from that final week.
Right. So we take all the profit too, and the theater doesn't make it.
Which
you
is
make
why,
it off of
popcorn costs so much and all that other stuff gets overinflated. But a major theater like AMC or Regal, they have to show the Disney movie. Like that's the only way they're going to get people to come. So it's like a weird thing, and that's why you see like if you have like a small theater in your area, they won't show Disney movies. They won't. There's a Disney ban with small theaters for the most part because of that practice specifically.
And I feel like people like really understand the fact that like intellectual property is like all that corporations really care about, right? So whenever they make a movie, people really, dislike Marvel movies. There can be a good Marvel movie, there can be a good DC movie. The Dark Knight's great, but like what happens is the corporations and the CEOs, they only care about profit. They don't care about the quality of what it is they're making. So they will always try to be cheaper and cheaper. And that's why you see, like, if you've watched those Marvel movies, the quality of them has gone down like exponentially. Like when you watch like Endgame, and now you watch Ant-Man and the Wasp, and it looks like what was the Spy Kids 3D? It's like it's just such a difference in like just everything they're doing now. We're just like, what happened?
Fucking Spy Kids.
Exactly.
But Spy Kids was actually good.
Spy Kids was actually good. That's a better movie. Yeah.
For
I
sure,
would
for
say
sure.
you could look at the trend of like slasher movies, because like the first Halloween, someone had a vision, someone had a thought, but then over time those slasher generic, some cash grabs. They don't put a lot of effort into them, and there's a few of them that look like someone made it in their backyard, and that's just because the studio is relying on that IP to the point where they'll have clauses like characters can't die so that they can keep milking them forever.
Yeah, forever. And now with deep fakes and CGI, we're getting into this like dark territory where they're like, we can't recast Indiana Jones. Let's just deep fake his face for the first half of the movie where he'll be young again. We'll just use these deep fakes. And they're doing that all over the place. It's like, no one's going to ever replace Harrison Ford. Everyone loves him. Well, we're just deep fake him, like it's getting weird too. We're at this really bad point in time.
Yeah, I was disappointed to see Scorsese jump on that bandwagon with The Irishman, where, they just did that god awful de-aging of De Niro, where it's like he was clearly moving like an 80-year-old man, but looked like aged 42-year-old De Niro.
Yeah.
No, it really took me out of that movie. Like The Irishman, especially, was the uncanny valley where I was just like, this is so bad. Like sometimes CGI is so bad where it takes you out of the entire thing. You're just like, I can't even watch this. What am I seeing? It's crazy.
Yeah, it reminds me of when I think it was season 2 of Mandalorian, and Luke Skywalker walks in, but like Mark Hamill's now like fat and old and also a Nazi sympathizer, and he just like shows up as like young him, but they CGI'd young Mark Hamill's face onto this 20-year-old. And it just looks terrible. I mean, it looks like a nightmare.
Yeah, it was nightmare fuel. And the funniest thing about that you mentioned that is there's behind the scene photos of the person that they cast, and he looked identical to Mark Hamill. So they could have just had this kid play young Mark Hamill, and it would have looked better than what they did. Like, so I was like, why did they CGI his face to be like this nightmare fuel when they had the perfect looking, like, casted Mark Hamill? It's wild.
Yeah, and then when
they're playing with it and seeing if it's viable.
Right, and we really are looking at the territory now of, like you were saying earlier, once AI gets, they're able to master background actors, then how long until we have the first AI real movie? And I know you can do it now, but I mean, like, as seamless as you can get. And then you have these, you're going to have all these actors who have been long, dead and gone, and their estates will give up their likeness. And then you'll have movies with, fucking, I don't know, literally name any dead actor.
Right, that's a huge debate too. And that happened in like I want to say like early 2000s, maybe even 90s, where they brought back Fred Astaire to sell. He's dead, and they brought him back to sell a vacuum. And then so there's this huge debate where it's just like, this guy's dead, and his family estate's like, we can still profit off him selling stuff. But then you have this weird ethical thing where it's like, you have someone that's dead and you're selling their likeness to sell products they may not have sold or backed or agree with. You can make them do anything. And sure, it's maybe harmless. It's a vacuum. But imagine they pay the family to be like, I want you to do an endorsement of Trump. Like where this actor would have never had those ideologies, but now the family can sell those to someone to make. And we just saw that in the Flash movie, and that was a big debate too, is they had Christopher Reeves. There's a huge kind of debate. They brought him back for like one shot. He did play Superman. DC owns the likeness of him as Superman, so they can use him, and the family signed off of it. But it's weird seeing a dead man in a movie, 30 years after his death. It's kind of bizarre.
So something I just thought about. Did you guys ever watch BoJack Horseman?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I refuse.
It's good. It's good.
There's a whole, and it's funny because Netflix, funded that, and they use like an AI scan in like the second season as an insurance policy. So if he goes on like a crazy bender or dies, they could keep making the movie. And he ended up disappearing for like a few months at a time, and they didn't want to stop production. And he comes back, he's like, "Oh, so what's going on?" They're like, "Oh, well, the AI, the that version of you was so charismatic. We just reshot the whole movie with it, got rid of all your stuff."
Yeah, and that joke was very ahead of its time because there was recently an actress was like for the stunts and like the CGI stuff, they did full body scans of us, and now like with this AI stuff, she's like, I feel like now they have a full body scan of me that they could do anything with, and I gave them consent to do that because I thought that was just part of the deal. I didn't have any like safety measures, and we didn't understand where this direction was going. But now studios, if you think about it, with all these like big action movies, when they do, like Fast and the Furious, when like Vin Diesel, who's like in his 50s, like is, thrown through a car, it's some CG full scan of him. Now Warner Brothers has that in their database that they can be like, oh, when Vin Diesel dies, we just pay their family and then just have him in 10 more Fast and the Furious movies, him fighting Jurassic Park, whatever the next, venture that they're going to do with that franchise. But it's a weird thing to think about for sure. But BoJack did call it. Yeah.
I feel like. Sorry. I think it's difficult because like you'd be able to sort of do the same thing with like if they really wanted to keep those characters alive, they could just like do it as animation and like have some sort of voice actor imitate an older one, if you know what I mean. Like they do that like all the time.
Yeah, and
but, like I can see like the like using the literal likeness of somebody, like their face is weird.
Yeah, and it even goes like this is going to start being like a right wing thing, and this is going to be interesting. Is the guy who voiced Rick and Morty and then voiced Solar Opposites, Justin Roiland, was canceled because he was doing a bunch of sexual assault stuff. So all the studios had to distance themselves, but these IPs are profitable. So like it was interesting because what Solar Opposite did is they did a joke about it where like we're going to change your voice, and they use a ray on his voice and it changes, so it's a different actor playing the character.
Like British now and everything.
Yeah, he's like exactly. It's very very clever. I love it. And then, but in Rick and Morty, what they're going to do, which is very kind of problematic, is they're just going to cast voice doubles, like or voice actors, and that's kind of weird where it's just like you're just getting someone that sounds like a Rick impersonator playing the role. I feel like what Solar Opposite did was better because then you're still distancing yourself completely from that actor. But what Rick and Morty is doing is like, you love the Rick voice, we're gonna get that again, kid. It's still the same thing, like, and people that might not pay attention to all the stuff that happens in the background might not even notice the difference because they just got a different actor that sounds like Rick.
Yeah, I feel like the point is to make it so like nobody really notices because like to be fair, like if you're watching Rick and Morty, like it's gonna like fuck up your experience if they sound weird the entire time. Like I don't know. For me, like when I watch stuff and like somebody's voice sounds Futurama episodes, like something just like feels off because like they just took like 10 years from making the newest season, right? Like 10 years in between. So it's just like I'm watching the episode and I'm like, something's wrong and I don't like it. You know what I mean?
I think
I think with that at least they brought back the same cast.
Yeah.
Like originally when they rebooted it on Comedy Central, that was like a budget thing. They didn't want to pay the Futurama cast and they were going to recast the entire cast. So at least with Hulu they sound older, but they got the original cast, everyone that's still alive.
Yeah.
I do take a little less issue with that because even if they do sound the same and they're kind of impersonating the voice, it is still another actor getting paid for their work and performance. It would be different if they were just like, you know what, we really want the Rick and Morty voice, so we're going to AI that voice back in.
But that's what I'm talking about. That's where it will go eventually.
Eventually, that's where it will go.
Honestly, at that point, there's no hope for humanity because if AI is just making Rick and Morty edits I'm gonna kill myself. Like
Indefinitely.
we just can't do this anymore.
It's
So-
100 years, Rick and Morty.
The sad news, and we can move on because I know you want to talk about the Cuban Revolution. I know we've been on this topic a long time, but like the last thing I will say is they're already doing it. So James Earl Jones, who played Darth Vader's voice, is too old to do that voice. He signed away to Disney his voice likeness forever. So anytime now that you hear Darth Vader in like the Anakin show or any of those shows, that's AI samples of James Earl Jones' voice from the older movies.
Major L.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Not a fan of it.
no.
I don't think anyone is. Yeah. Hey, we should do
Like-
an Actors Guild and AI taking over because it's a real thing that's happening within the studios.
It would be one thing, like, if they were just indefinitely paying James Earl Jones, like, while he's alive. Like, if he just can't do the voice anymore, he can't do the voice anymore. But that's not what they're doing. It's a one-time fee. And that's what they want to do with the background actors.
That's what they want to do with everything. Yeah.
Paying you one time, pay you like $500, put you whatever they want for all eternity.
Yep. And when they're done with you, using you in movies, and you're no longer profitable, they can send you to the porn industry, and then they can do deep fakes of you having sex with people. Yeah.
Yep. I can't
And
wait
that's
for my
when we get the real shot of Einstein hanging dog.
Yep.
Yep.
Finally.
Full loop, brought it back.
Exactly. Well, on a much more positive note, I think, today, for future listeners, it is July 27th. Yesterday was July 26th, marking, and if I get this wrong, just put me in the gulag, 70-year anniversary of the beginning of the Cuban Revolution. And I think we should, take this time to, discuss and just recognize the successes of that revolution that, Fidel and Raul and Che and all the men and women who fought under them to liberate Cuba. And, recognize that despite the U.S. imperialism and embargoes, Cuba, I would say, is a successful socialist experiment.
Mm-hmm. One of the most successful.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that we could really find inspiring from when we examine the Cuban Revolution is realizing how small it really was. But as a personal anecdotal, I always felt, one, just fascinated with the Cuban Revolution, but kind of just drawn to it in a way. And it's funny how these things work, right? Because as I've told you guys before, but those who don't know, Matt, you probably don't know, but, my parents are refugees from Guatemala, and they fled the civil war that was going on at the time. And that civil war was direct result from U.S. intervention to coup. The first democratically elected president, his name was Jacobo Arbenz. And it basically cascaded into this, multi-factional infighting. You had a genocide happening in the north against the indigenous. You had communist guerrillas. You had reactionary guerrillas. So anyways, all around bad. But when that coup happened in 1954, Che Guevara was in Guatemala City. And he was just kind of like, I don't want to say just chilling, but he was there. So he directly saw an event that my parents were involved in, and then met Fidel and the gang, and they were like, you want to join our revolution? And he's like, hell yeah. And then they went and they fought and they won their revolution. And now here I am in the States, unfortunately, because of direct result of what the United States did. And I just think it's really fucking funny how those things work out. And here I am now on this podcast talking to you fucking nerds about revolution. And I think that's fantastic.
No, that's super good. interesting thing about like, this whole thing is like, Fidel also, was when it first happened and took, stopped the dictatorship. It's like the U.S. actually was positive about it, right? And was like, he was like flown out to, TV shows, and like he was like, news crews visit him, and he was on the cover of Times magazine twice as person of the year. And then when they realized what he was about, and like, oh, we hate communism, we gotta stop this, it's like the narrative about him changed like completely, like the opposite, and now it's like so it's crazy like how he was looked at in the US at the time versus now. It's just insane.
Yeah, I mean, we have a long history of doing that. Real quick, and then I'll pass it to you, Larry. Like, another great example. Not that I support what he did, but Osama bin Laden. Like, when he fought against the Soviets, he was the hero of Afghanistan. And then when he did what he did, now he's the ultra enemy, and we've never associated ourselves with him.
Right, exactly. And I was just going to add that I think it's speaking about Fidel and his young days, his early days. People don't realize that the Cubans, and Fidel had tried and exhausted every legal opportunity to reform. Exhaustively went through every opportunity to reform, and it wasn't going to work. So they were forced to do revolution. It was not something they set out to do. They set out to do this through the system. The material realities wound up showing that the only choice they had was revolution, and it just again proved the theory correct once again.
Fidel
and even those that like didn't join up with the revolution initially, they were still trying to do reforms.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe there was like a massive campaign, like protest slash like strike that they had, like a huge thing that they were trying to do to like get reform in the country, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it like hugely failed. And then right after that, that's when like people that didn't support the revolution were like, all right, well, we literally can't get anything done, so we might as well take up arms. You know what I mean?
Exactly. That's what the masses, their eyes were opened at every failure of reform, and that's why we have to exhaust every both legal and Minecraft activity that we can in order to build a better world.
I mean, that's kind of one of the.
I gotta play Minecraft. Everyone's hyped it up on the live so much.
I've never even played it.
One of my,
I know. I get the joke.
One of my favorite, because of the Cuban Revolution, this happened. Las Vegas is only the way it is because of the Cuban Revolution.
Yep.
Havana was essentially the casino hub. That was the Las Vegas. And then after the revolution, they had like Las Vegas as we know it wouldn't exist the way it did. It does without the Cuban Revolution.
It's crazy how much is like connected, to the Cuban Revolution. I mean, that's history, right? It's dialectics. But like, besides my the American Mafia was in with Batista's regime in Havana, with those casinos and all the prostitution and sex trafficking, drug trafficking that the American mob, especially the area I'm around in New York City and New Jersey, were just one-on-one engaging with that. And when the communists took over, that directly affects not only the world and Cuba and relationships with the United States, but down to the level of organized crime. In the local area, all of a sudden, your plug is gone, and I don't know. It's just fascinating, and it's fascinating for me, especially growing up in New York, where, especially the particular area of New York where I'm at, where a lot of Italian Americans are very much obsessed with like The Sopranos and The Godfather and all that stuff, and I'm just like, why do you guys see these people as good? They're really not. Like, no, they're.
But Fidel, that mook, he come in, and then my grandfather had to he couldn't launder his gabagool there no more.
Yeah, exactly.
The best like Fidel stories is like how many times the U.S. tried to kill him. Because if you read about those are some of the like the most Looney Tune shit like you ever read. Like this is true. People are gonna think I made this up. This is absolutely true. Is one of the ways they tried to kill Castro was they knew that he liked scuba diving and they wanted to. I guess they wanted to attach a bomb to a seashell. So when the spot he was swimming, that would blow up. I'm not making that up. You can fucking Google that. Fucking wild shit. Wild shit.
It
like
still doesn't beat the sending of an assassin to kill him, and he seduces her.
Yeah, that's the best one. That's the best.
Some like Wile E. Coyote shit. It's based on the saying of Fidel Castro.
Well, I don't think Wiley fucks it.
In that diary, she wrote in her diary, and I quote, "He made love to me quite expertly."
Wow.
That's the peak one.
He's got that dong.
We're talking about Einstein hanging dongs? Nah. My boy Castro was hanging dongs.
Absolutely.
I mean, we don't know if he was hanging it, but he was definitely whipping it around.
My favorite was when they tried to get his beard to fall out because I thought it was one of the biggest aspects of his charisma.
they were like, we gotta get rid of his mojo. We gotta.
It's like that's like Squidward and SpongeBob. Oh no, he's hot.
Oh, exactly.
But
real quick, Muerte, you want to say something about this? You've been awfully quiet.
They got him. They got him.
This is what happens.
They got him.
He must have gone scuba diving right where that seashell was.
Full seashell bomb trick. They got him.
Larry was saying, he said that it happens in every fucking episode.
Oh, don't forget the exploding cigar that they wanted to do.
The Acme exploding cigar.
Not Acme.
All of these are real. You can like research this. It sounds like we're making this shit up. We're improving. No, it's all like fucking real. It's great.
So that should go, to the listener out there, like, if you, for legal reasons, I'm not telling you to do Minecraft activities, but, if you are thinking of, what can I do for the leftist cause, besides political educating yourself, join an organization. It goes back to what we were talking about media earlier. Leftist content is becoming more popular. It's becoming more profitable. I'm trusting you that you know what you're talking about. That's a whole other conversation. But, if Fidel and 22 dudes can start a revolution, start the fucking YouTube channel like we did, I guarantee you it'll go a lot better than you think it will.
Yeah. Absolutely. Let's not forget the beginning of the Chinese Revolution. Their party was about 25, 30 people, and half missed the first meeting. So,
and we miss meetings all the time.
Muerte gets taken out by the FBI like once a week.
And I will say this: I do want to do a shout out. Is PSL is doing Noche Cubana, a revolutionary celebration of Cuban culture and history, and that is Saturday at 7 in Los Angeles. I'll put up a flyer on my TikTok if anyone's in LA, but we're raising money for Cuba. So, if anyone wants to attend, there's going to be drinks, food, a bunch of people talking about Cuba, and it's going to be great. So, sorry, that's the plug. That's my one plug.
No, perfect plug.
That's a perfect worthy plug. Beautiful.
Perfect reason you could plug.
Yeah, well, I would ask you if you have anything else you want to plug before you go, but you said it was your only one.
That's it. That's the only thing that's coming up is PSL, Noche Cubana, Saturday at the Air in Los Angeles. We're raising money for Cuba. I'll put up the flyer I'll make it a story or something. Sorry, short notice. It's only like one day, but yeah.
No, that's all good stuff. Well, boys, I think we did it.
I think so.
Oh yeah.
I want to share one more because I'm over here reading it on my computer while y'all are
Bonus
talking.
assassination attempt. Let's go.
This one wasn't so much an assassination like of his life, but kind of like the Beard thing. They wanted to attack his charisma and character. They planned to spray the broadcasting studio with a chemical that would make him suffer hallucinations as if he was on LSD. So they just wanted to fucking drug him so he would go up on stage and look like Mitch McConnell.
I feel like the U.S. government, they were just all like snorting coke and they're like, let's just like rip.
What
Let's
do we
rip.
got,
What can we
boys?
do? What do we got, boys? What do we got? Seashells, bombs. He likes cigars.
They're like, seashells. Oh, this man's cooking. Oh yeah, I like it.
He's cooking. He's got that pizzazz. Oh shit!
But what ultimately got our boy Fidel was old age. Something that probably pisses off the CIA to this day.
Well, fuck them.
We can only yes.
Just remember, boys, when we make it and a box of cigars shows up on your house or a busty lass or lad, you
seduce the cigars and smoke the lass.
We have to see if they're trying to kill you. They're trying to kill you, and then you can, get your freak on.
I have asthma, so I'm safe.
That's not fun.
Now, if they gave me a giant like baguette bread stick, and it had like a pipe bomb in it, I'd probably try it. I'd take a bite.
What if we gave you like a big ass inhaler, and it said
a giant inhaler,
poison on it?
It's got a skull and crossbones on the inhaler.
It has Acme brand on it. That's how Muerte. They put a glizzy out, and he loves his
Muerte in the comment. Where you at?
Yeah, I'm also sad he was assassinated because the comrade. What was it? Comrade. I don't even know what it's called. Comrade Countdown, #1 right here above me. #1 comrade.
That's right.
I saw that TikTok.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he'll be revived by next week. But anyway, guys, this is episode 6. Matt, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. I really love talking to all of you. I love all your accounts. You make super base stuff, and anytime. This was fun.
Yes, it was great. And same to you as well. Just beautiful content.
All right,
it's
boy.
Okay. Mine's okay.
No. You got good stuff. Don't short yourself. All right. Thanks for coming on. I'm Ivan, and someone take it from me.
I am Cruz.
Guys, come on. We've been doing this for weeks.
All right. Okay. All right. Fucking new rule. Right. New rule. We go from bottom to top. Let's go. Bottom to top.
Okay.
Well, I
am Compañero Cruz, the people's boyfriend, and I'll see you next week.
I'm Comrade Kurubai. Once again.
And I'm Larry.
I'm Matt Galvatron. I lost to Larry in the Comrade Countdown. I think I was 7 and he was 5, so I'm just a loser.
And I'm Comrade Muerte. I'm reviving from CPC's headquarters. I apologize, comrades.
#1 right there. #1.
Bro.
Muerte got helicoptered to the CPC.
Yes. General Secretary lives.
Thank you for coming on, Comrade Matt. Keep up the content. And I hope to have you on another future episode, too.
Anytime. Sounds good.
Thanks.